We are turning the virtual reality headsets basically to a certified durable medical equipment, fully reimbursable by Medicare and other private payers. One of the things that I think our device is unique at is the ability to reflect to the providers what the status of and the outcomes of the patient. We are constantly communicating with the providers to give them the information of the outcomes of that patient.
One of the most interesting aspects of XRHealth is that the device is actually covered by Medicare as DME. How significant is that milestone?
Without that, I don't think this technology could actually be adopted. The market today is a market where you're optimizing for the time of the clinician and how much sessions they're actually doing. And the only way to adopt technology is if you'll find a business model that would make sense for everyone.
What does this mean for like DME providers looking for new growth opportunities as they're looking to scale, incorporating you?
I would argue that there isn't a single more exciting product for suppliers than VIA. But I would argue this will be the most attractive DME offering for any DME supplier, DME provider out there.
Okay, we are live on the #1 DME podcast, Claim to Fame. Today we have very special guests today. Eran from XRHealth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Ron, welcome. We're excited to get into it. We always start this off by just kind of, if you can take 2 minutes and kind of who you are and what you do, and give our listeners kind of some insights on you, and then we'll jump into an interesting conversation here.
Sure, happy to. So as you can hear from the accent, originally from Israel. I'm not originally from the healthcare scene. I'm a former F-16 pilot. I served for 15 years. And about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with whiplash injury due to the active flight of the G-forces. At the same time, my wife got an offer to come and do her postdoc here in Boston. I knew that no one would hire me as an F-16 pilot in the US, so I had no choice but to start my own business. The initial idea was to use virtual reality to treat whiplash patients. And over time, we expanded from physical therapy to occupational therapy to mental health, pain management. And today we have over 150 different types of applications. And we are turning the virtual reality headsets basically to a certified durable medical equipment, fully reimbursable by Medicare and other private payers. I do believe we're the biggest company within our industry if you measure us by number of sessions or users. Completed 1 million sessions last year, and operating in 25 states at the moment. And we believe that this is the future of rehab, and this is the future of how we'll consume healthcare in the future.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is it's super interesting. I mean, if I told you, if we were here like 10 years ago and we were talking about doctors being able to prescribe virtual reality headsets as a DME and Medicare would reimburse it, most people probably would have laughed. And that's kind of exactly what's happening here today. The whole thing is really interesting. How do we actually get here?
So I think virtual reality is one of the most researched fields in medicine, actually. I think the last number that I'm aware of, there are over 15,000 papers showing how effective VR is for different types of therapies. And I think over time, when I started the business, we used it was roughly at the same time, I think Palmer Luckey launched his Kickstarter. But just for the audience, back then you needed a $5,000 computer. Everything was tethered. You needed 30 minutes to set up a VR station in order for actually to deliver some kind of experience in virtual reality. Today we have those the Meta Quest headsets, $300. The compute is stronger and better than 10 years ago with all the gaming computers. And I think the missing piece was how to actually commercialize it and how to actually get paid for it. And that was actually resolved a year and a half ago when, after a lot of years, and due to the fact that a lot of companies, but one specifically, Applied VR did a very impressive push, and they were able to convince CMS that VR for cognitive behavioral therapy should be reimbursable, and that basically opened the entire industry, and in the DME market to actually start using VR as a DME.
Around what were some of the biggest challenges, convincing these payers, providers, and even patients that this is real medicine that works?
So, first of all, we are still in the educational phase. Part of the reason why I'm here is to let people know we exist and this technology is applicable to them. Most of the people today still believe VR is for gaming purposes. And a lot of them haven't even tried VR ever. They don't even know what that means. So one of the challenges is just to let the industry know we exist. And I think the reason why CMS decided to approve it in a relatively broad, by the way, indication, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the most common techniques for different types of interventions on the mental health side and pain management side. But I think the reason why CMS decided eventually to reimburse it as a durable medical equipment is because the research is overwhelming. We have 50 clinical trials showing how effective it is. Other companies, as I mentioned, have their own. And I don't believe it's one specific app that is making the difference. It's the technology and the ability to hijack the brain to treat the body. There's something in virtual reality that is the fact that it's so immersive that we can use different types of techniques as as cognitive behavioral therapy and brain plasticity and to actually affect patient in a very comprehensive and effective way. And again, we've been seeing that for 10 years now, and I think CMS also acknowledged that. And now we're in a different phase in our evolution as an ecosystem. Is we know it's working. We know that people can get paid, and durable medical suppliers can offer this to their partners. They just don't know we exist, right? And this is actually applicable. Now, I can tell you that once patients understand that it is covered, the demand and the excitement is, over the rooftop. And also, we have patients using the device 3 and 4 hours a week. How many devices, are in the market that someone is using 3 or 4 hours a week? So, again, we are, I think, in the, we've made a long way, at least in the 10 years that I'm in the industry. And now we are in the exciting moment where we have everything checked out, the FDA, the reimbursement, the distribution, the different applications. Now it's a question of how more people and more DME suppliers know that actually is out there.
Yeah, it's super interesting stuff. I mean, I'm just trying to understand conceptually how the whole thing works, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are probably thinking the same thing too. So anyone who's hearing about XRHealth for the first time and wants to understand, like, how does the platform itself work? Like, what actually happens? You pop this thing on your head. What are people seeing? What are you hearing? What's going on?
Well, first of all, I invite people to go to our website. They will see all the videos and they can get a better sense. But especially for the listeners, when you're putting a VR headset on, you are basically stepping into a 360 environment where you actually believe you are in that computer-generated environment. And obviously, because it's a computer-generated environment, we can manipulate the environment to create different types of scenarios. All our applications are based on different types of clinical protocols. If I'm trying to simplify how that looks like, let's take physical therapy as an example, and then I'll give you 2 other examples from pain management and mental health. But physical therapy, by definition, most of the things that you're doing in physical therapy is different types of repetitive exercises to improve your range of motion, to reduce the pain, to strengthen your muscles. But it's very repetitive and it's very, very boring. And it's also, no one can actually measure if you're getting better or not, right? So what we're doing is taking those types of exercises that are well researched, that those are the exercises you need to do in order to recover. And then we create different type of 360 environment where you can play a game, but by playing the game, you're actually doing the right type of exercises. The system measure your range of motion, response time, reaction time, provide feedback to you or to your clinician, and then you're doing those exercises, but in a fun and engaging way. So that's like one example. The other example is cognitive behavioral therapy, which I mentioned is the main use cases. So cognitive behavioral therapy today is basically a technique where you need to, if I'm simplifying it, and I know that clinicians will be angry at the simplification that I'm about to do, but just again, for this audience, I'm just trying to simplify it. You are basically sitting in front of your clinicians and they're walking you through different types of mindset and techniques to cope with your chronic pain for that matter. Okay, so there are different types of techniques that again have already been proven day in and day out that they are successful. But it's just very hard to close your eyes and imagine. And you can do that mainly when you're sitting with a therapist that is well educated about how to convey that technique. So think about that, and we can do that in a far more engaging and a 360 environment. You don't have to be with your clinician all the time because we can reprogram that type of experience, to be able to do that by yourself, and then to also give feedback to your clinician. So that's the example number 2. And example number 3, and I'll conclude with that, even though I have a lot more. Think about different types of situations where it's very hard to simulate different types of things that triggering you to in real life. For, let's say, if there are things that are making you very anxious, or for example, if you're suffering from substance abuse, or for example, if you are suffering from PTSD and you have specific location or specific places that are triggering your PTSD. Today, it's very limited how to cope with those situations, right? Like if you have a stressful situation, walking into to a bar because you'll be tempted to order and drink and you are suffering from substance abuse, that's just very hard, right? So, but in VR, we can simulate all of those types of scenarios, right? And any scenario that you can think of, we can create that simulation, and we can also control the intensity of how that situation is being, presented to you. And when you are combining that with a very educated clinician, then he can start working with you in virtual reality. So when you're getting to the real life situation, you already practiced this 50, 500 times in virtual reality, right? So that's how the transition from VR to real world and real outcomes actually, make the difference. And I'll just conclude by, in this segment, VR is very unique because on a single device, what I just described to you, in other scenarios, that's usually 3 different devices, right? In VR, you can actually combine different types of modalities of care and you can modify different things. I'm not aware that there are any other technologies out there that can be very robust. And for chronic conditions, that's very, very valuable because if you're suffering from chronic pain, you're usually suffering from stress and anxiety and range of motion limitations and different types of fine motor skills and gross motor skills. And you don't need 5 devices or 7 devices. You can have 1, right? So I think that's the beautiful thing about the VR and about using VR as a durable medical equipment.
That's really interesting.
It's super cool stuff, and it's new to me to hear the hardware and software kind of be applied in this manner. I guess my question is, in terms of like what patients actually get, if they qualify for this, are they getting sent the actual device with the software and everything built in? Like the device, to me, it looks kind of like the MetaQuest or something similar to that. Is that what it is? It's just uploaded with your software? I'm just curious how that whole thing kind of all fits together.
Yeah, so in order to be quantified as a durable medical equipment, the device can only be used for medical purposes. So what we're doing is basically taking the off-the-shelf Meta Quest headsets. We're taking out all the kill the zombies and different games and loading it only with FDA Class 2 and medical applications. And we're doing also a full QA and different types of quality assurance processes, including HIPAA and cybersecurity. And then we're repackaging them. And that basically that repackaging process turns them from a off-the-shelf gaming tool to a DME that is certified. And now when a DME order, when a supplier is placing an order, we have logistics centers. When we are shipping the headset to the patient home, we have teams that are helping the patient to make sure they know how to unpack the headset, how to start using it, how to actually understand what the different applications are from, and measuring outcome and engagement on the other side, so the patient can actually see how it goes. And also we have the ability that the device and the data will be monitored by a certified clinician and can pick and choose the different types of application tailored to that specific need of that specific patient. Because one of the things that we learned over time is that there's no one solution that fits all. Some patients need one set of apps, and some of them need different set of apps. And when a clinician can tailor the different types of application and measure outcomes and see how the patient did engage, then the device is becoming, again, as I mentioned, very, very powerful. So that's basically how it goes. CMS are now covering cup rental for up to 13 months. And after that, if the patient stays, keep the device for 13 months, then the device is basically theirs to keep. But for DME suppliers, I think that's again, any other cup rental device that they have today, and bill Medicare accordingly.
Eran, I was just thinking, this is new to me and Alex. And I'm assuming tons of patients, when they first do this initially, what would you say surprises the patient the most, right? I'm sure they're a little bit not suspicious, but maybe they're not sold on it yet. Is there any initial reactions that you see from patients after they go through this for the first time?
So first, I think the most surprising thing that most people are surprised is that you don't need to be tech savvy and you don't need to be young and hip in order to use it. Most of our patients are Medicare over the age of 65. We have patients even older than 90. Now, I think people believe that VR is a very complex type of technology and it's very hard for them to get into that. But what we find is in a lot of cases, it's a lot more intuitive than a mobile phone. Mainly because once you put the VR headset on, then the interactions are 3D interactions like any one of us are interacting in real life. So it's very intuitive. And besides that, we have a very seasoned team to help, to go through that initial hurdle of new technologies and how to use it. So I think if you ask me, that's the most surprising thing, that again, we need to bridge the gap of people that all we need them to do is to put the headset on. Now, once you are putting the headset on, I don't know if you guys, when was the last time you tried VR, but people are, I think, overwhelmed at how immersive the experience is, and how they feel that they are part of something that is unique. And just on that front, just to give you another example, we have also on our headsets, we just acquired peer support, virtual reality support group type of engagement. And one of the amazing things to see is that you have different people, different places, but all suffering from chronic pain for that matter. And then they are in that virtual reality environment. All of them are feeling like they are in the same room together. And that's something that is very unique to virtual reality, and part of the reason why Badoy Meta are investing so much in this technology. But that's a very powerful type of experience. So to answer your question, I think the gap between I don't want to use it, I'm not a tech savvy, I don't know anything about this looks far more complex for me to use, to fully engage only in 3 hours a week type of usage happen relatively fast and far more often than you would imagine. The challenge is the first piece, right? That's like how to just give it a try type of.
No, it makes sense. Really interesting there.
One thing that I was thinking is in comparison to traditional approaches, I'm sure again people might be wondering, is it better to be seen by someone physically in person, or maybe at the comfort of your own home? You think that maybe you would probably use it more and get more out of it. But what results are you seeing in comparison to those traditional approaches?
So I think one of the challenges in traditional therapy, which I don't know if you know, but just to give you throw some statistics out there. 50% of the mental health patients are dropping after session number 1. So they're going to meet their clinicians. There's not a good fit. That's it. They're done. Okay, that's on the mental health side. On the physical therapy side, less than third complete their treatment plan, which is usually 12 to 18 sessions of in-person type. But the biggest problem today is actually just the engagement and the compliance with your therapy sessions. VR is probably the best technology out there to increase compliance and adherence. Okay, we have 97% of people completing their therapeutic sessions, and it's because it's so engaging and the experience is so powerful and people are enjoying, the fact. And when you're comparing that to drive 45 minutes, look for a parking spot, then sit for 30 minutes in line. Your clinician you are number 8 in their day of back-to-back 45 minutes of talk therapy or physical therapy. I don't think you can even compare the experience. And by the way, I'm a big believer in the combination of clinicians and technology. I don't think technology can solve everything by itself, but I also think that where we are as an industry is that the only solution is technology, because we don't have enough clinicians and they are burned out by the fact that they constantly need to do back-to-back. In a fee-for-service model, they are optimizing for additional minutes for another reimbursement of whatever. And at the end of the day, as a patient, you're not getting what you would expect. The clinicians are burned out. But if you combine technology, then you create magic. What I'm telling my clinicians, my job is to turn them into super clinicians. Because if we can, provide the right technology to a very talented clinician, and the technology will do most of the heavy lifting, and we can flag only the relevant patient to that clinician where they need to intervene, the ones that are not engaged, the ones that are the outcomes are not performing the way that is supposed to. Suddenly you can change completely the supply-demand curve, and you can provide far better care to those patients.
For sure. And, one of the most interesting aspects of XRHealth is that the device is actually covered by Medicare as DME. How significant is that milestone?
So without that, I don't think this technology could actually be adopted. And as I mentioned previously, the market today is the market where you're optimizing, for the time of the clinician and how much sessions they're actually doing. And the only way to adopt technology is if you'll find a business model that would make sense for everyone, right? So again, I think CMS here did a very, very impressive move to say, look, we are covering this in a relatively, economically viable reimbursement rate in order, I'm assuming, to let more players understand this technology exists. And now, again, now that we have all the components in place, it's up to us, or the industry, not just us as a company. The industry need to let the DME suppliers know that this is another tool in their toolbox for them to offer to their partners.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting stuff. And I was curious, what does this mean for like DME providers looking for new growth opportunities as they're looking to scale, incorporating you?
So I would argue that there isn't a single more exciting product for DME suppliers than VR. And again, I know that I'm not objective, but I would argue this will be the most attractive DME offering for any DME supplier, DME provider out there. That's number one. Number two is, as I mentioned previously, this is a very robust type of platform, and it's also very robust and broad type of indications that can actually be relevant for this type of product. So cognitive, as I mentioned, the reimbursement is VR for cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy can address chronic pain, stress, anxiety, any other type of conditions that are related to any type of other condition, like post-discharge patient that just came out of the hospital that are suffering from those conditions. So it's a very, very broad type of indication can be applicable. So I would argue that if I'm a DME supplier, probably 50% at least of my audience can benefit from this device. I have the reimbursement, on the other side, and it's not just Medicare, by the way. It's also Humana now covering it. We have Medicaid that are starting to cover it. So we see now more and more health plans are starting to cover it. So it's another revenue opportunity, immediate revenue opportunity for those DME suppliers. It's by far, I think, a marketing tool for them to, show that they are the state-of-the-art type of DME suppliers that are using the, technology. It's another way for them to engage with providers that can offer the technology to other providers that they also are not aware this exists for their patient. So I do think there are multiple avenues here why DME suppliers should be very excited about this.
For sure, I couldn't agree more. Especially with looming competitive bid, there's definitely providers looking for innovative products to offer their patient base. And then these providers that you're working with, how are they responding to the idea of dispensing technology-based therapies to these patients?
So one of the things that I think our device is unique at is the ability to reflect to the providers what the status of and the outcomes of the patient. So think about it today. If I'm a provider and I'm prescribing a DME to a patient, that's basically it. I have no idea what's happening on the other side up until the point where maybe the patient is coming back in a crisis mode, that things haven't actually worked out the way that me as a provider, right, I expected. We are constantly communicating with the providers to give them the information of the outcomes of that patient. And they can also intervene. And by the way, they also have ability to get additional revenue because the device can also be used for RTM billing. So they can monitor, they can adjust the device if they want to. So I think we need to step away from interacting with clinician 30 minutes and then no one knows anything about anyone for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, best case scenario. And then after 4 weeks, we expect the provider to actually make decision. Like, why we not, keeping that line of communication and data flow between the provider and the patient. It's also good for the patient. It's also amazing for the provider. And I think it's because the technology is out there, and most of the technologies that the DME suppliers are using today are lacking that ability to actually keep that monitoring component. And that's another thing that this technology brings to the table. We can provide far better understanding what's actually happening with the patient after prescribing a DME. And I think the more we'll move forward as an industry, that will be more applicable.
Do you
sure.
do you think we'll see more digital therapies reimbursed as DME in the future?
So I think that, first of all, there's a big shift in Washington. I don't know if the audience here are in the weeds of what's happening within CMS, but I think there's a lot of push in Washington to push for digital tools because they also understand that the only way to reduce cost for the system, improve the supply, improve the satisfaction rate of the patient, improve outcomes. That's all around technology. There's no other way. But if you won't solve the economical incentives for digital health companies to push those products to the market, that would never happen. That doesn't matter how many clinical trials and outcomes and results. It's just a question of the reimbursement model need to fit the actual use cases, and you need to still do the distribution and make sure that everything coexists. So I'm optimistic, and I can tell you that besides VR, we are already looking at other things, which we'll announce probably in the next few months. But we'll need to constantly work with the health plan to make sure it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. That's exciting. We'll have to have you back on for part 2.
Happy to.
Awesome. I have one final question before we move on to our rapid fire round. I think that a lot of listeners would be interested in hearing what you have to say on this. It's kind of about advice, right? So what advice would you give to healthcare entrepreneurs that are trying to build something disruptive today?
I think one of my biggest mistakes, I like to say when I started this business, I had curly hair, and this is how 10 years in the US looks like. I think I misunderstood the economical incentives. I thought that if we'll have another clinical trial, another FDA listing, another clinical data, that's it. Customers will wait outside. But that's not the case. Far from it. When I'm trying to articulate to myself what do you need in order to be successful in the U.S. healthcare system, you actually have 4 different pillars you need to check mark in order to actually move through the process. FDA, that's number 1. That's not even number 4. But you need clinical result, FDA listing that makes sense with the right claims. And you need to have that in place. But that's not enough. You need the reimbursement. That's a very high bar, and it's very complex to get. But surprisingly so, that's also not enough. Then you need clinicians' buy-in to actually think that it actually makes sense for them and for their patient. And that's actually not enough also, because you need the patient to actually say, you know what, it's actually beneficial for me. Each and every one of those 4 is very hard by itself. So I think a lot of early stage entrepreneurs believe that number 1 and even number 2 is it's done, and you just need to be mentally prepared. This is not the case, and in healthcare everything takes time, and it's not. I think within especially the venture-backed type of companies, especially in today's AI world, that people are looking for 10x in 1 year. That's not the case in healthcare. If that's what you expect, you won't see that in healthcare, and then you'll be surprised for the worst. Your investors will be surprised. So it's a different mindset, and you need to come prepared. But I will say, if you have the right, attitude, the stamina, and the resilience, you will get there. But you need to come with that mindset.
Absolutely.
Really good.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. So at this point of our segment, we will move on to a rapid fire round. It's kind of a fun this or that session. If you're ready to jump in, we can get started on it.
Go for it.
All right, let's do it. AI or XR?
Both. I think XR is the interface of AI in the future.
Right on. Build or partner?
That's a good question. I think that I would say build for early stage, and the more that you are moving along and you have something to offer, then partner.
Iron Man or Batman?
Iron Man easy.
Apple Vision Pro or MetaQuest?
MetaQuest easy.
Coffee or espresso?
Espresso easy. It's hard question.
ChatGPT or Claude?
For now, Claude by far, but I'm optimistic they will be able to turn this around.
Most used app on your phone?
Probably X.
Good one.
Last one. Let's see. Most futuristic technology you wish already existed?
robotics, humanoid robots.
Right on. Cool stuff. Well, that wraps up our rapid fire round. Eran, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a really interesting and fun session. This has been definitely unique compared to what we've seen in the past a bit. But if anyone wants to reach out to you or find out more about your company, what you do, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Well, go to our website, xr.health, or you can just send an email to info@xr.health. And again, we would love to partner with anyone that want to introduce this amazing technology to their patients.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.